Good afternoon. We are very, very honored to have with us Lieutenant Colonel Dr. Mordechai Kadar. Um, Muddy is a distinguished professor of Arabic and Middle Eastern literature and culture at Israel's Bar-Ilan University and a research associate at the university's Begin Sadat Center for Strategic Studies. Dr. Kadar is at least a 25-year veteran of IDF military intelligence and was with the famous Force 8200. Dr. Kadar is a sought-after lecturer in Israel and abroad, and his extensive experience on intelligence, counterterrorism, Arabic studies, and the Middle East has coupled with his charisma and his intelligence, and it makes every single encounter with him fascinating. And his geostrategic analysis is incredibly intelligent. Dr. Kadar has frequently appeared on Israel's television news networks, Channel 13, 14, as well as the Arabic language Al Jazeera television network. And he can argue against Quranic masters and with the best of them. On Friday morning, Israeli warplanes struck at an area next to the Syrian capital of Damascus. This strike came after days of clashes from the pro-Syrian government of Ahmad al Sharaa or Ahmad al Sharaa attacking the Druze community near Damascus, leaving dozens of people dead or wounded. On Thursday, Syria's Druze spiritual leader, Sheikh Hikmat Al-Hijri, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, harshly criticized Syria's government for what he called, quote, an unjustified genocidal attack on the minority community. We've seen over and over again how Hayat al-Sham, or HTS, has attacked many minority communities, and we certainly saw what they did to the Alawite community last December. Yet, others within the Druze community are issuing calls not to break away from the nation of Syria. We know now that there are about 700,000 Druze living within Syria. The Druze community is a very secretive community. They have their own private religion that's broken off from Islam. They speak Arabic. They live in Lebanon and Syria, and many are on the Golan Heights in Israel. Why is Israel coming in to support the Druze community? What are the pros and cons of this move? Will this trigger a counter reaction among the Druze or the Syrian population as a whole? And will this be an opening of yet another front in this 7-front war that Israel is now fighting? We are in excellent, excellent hands today. Here to address this question and many others that we have is Dr. Mordechai Kadar. Mati?
Thank you so much, Sarah, for arranging this meeting. And I'll try to be as brief as possible because this issue is rather complicated. And yet I'll try to leave some space for questions and I'll try to answer. For the background, in Islam, once a person or a community converts to Islam or is being born Islamic, there is no way to get out from Islam. If you leave Islam, your punishment is one and only: to depart your head. Even if you converted to Islam when you were drunk, if you got drunk and converting to Islam is very easy. You say, there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is a messenger, and you are a Muslim. Even if you are drunk, and when you, after the hangover, people tell you, hey, you converted to Islam, you are not allowed to leave Islam anymore. Even that. And if you leave, you might depart your head. So this is the verdict or the punishment of the apostate who leaves Islam. Why is it important for us? Well, 11 centuries ago, in the 10th century, a group of Muslims, Shi'i Ismaili Muslims who lived in Egypt, left Islam and they started a new religion named the Druze or the Darzi religion. Of course, they were forced to run away from Egypt because Egypt was Islamic in those days. So they found asylum or safe haven in the mountains of the Sham, means what today, Lebanon, Syria, and the land of Israel. And they settled on mountains always, and this is another rule in the Middle East, that minorities always live on the mountains. The Druze, the Shia, the Christians, the Alawites, all of them live on the mountains, while the Sunni Muslims live in the plainlands. Because the Sunni Muslims are the majority, they are not afraid of anyone, while the minorities are afraid because they are minorities, because some of them are viewed as apostates. So therefore they live in mountains because the mountains provide protection. You can hide, you can throw rocks from above, you have a tactical advantage over anyone who tries to attack you. So this is why they live in the mountains. So the Druze community as well. And until this very day, they live on the Hermon, in the northern part of the Golan. There are some 4, 5, 6 villages, depends how you count them, in the Hermon. In Jabal Druze means the mountain of the Druze, which is in South Syria, in the Sweda region. And in Lebanon, in the Shuf Mountains, always on the mountains. And they live this way for over 1,000 years. One of the Jewish travelers, I think it was Binyamin Mitudela, who was in the Middle East, describes them as the bravest people on earth, something like this. People who are fighters, that you don't mess with them because they will defend themselves very zealously and very powerfully. And this is how already he saw them and understood who they are and what they are. They are very close community. You cannot convert to be Druze. In order to be Druze, you have to have both your parents Druze. So if your father left the community and got married with another lady from Islam or from Christianity or from wherever, his children are not Druze anymore. And he cannot come back to live within the Druze. The same thing with the mother. So this is how they keep their community close. Yet these days they are keen to get married, not from the same family, but from other families, in order to avoid genetic problems. And this is understood. So this is the community. Historically, they were persecuted by Muslims from all the veins. The Sunni, the Shia, everybody was, because they left Islam. They dared to leave Islam. They are worse than Jews and Christians, because Jews and Christians are born Jews and Christians. So they are not to be blamed. But the Druze left Islam, and their religion is unknown, means it's a secretive religion, in order not to reveal the secrets of the religion to the Muslims, because they have all kinds of beliefs. They have 7 pillars, and they are different, totally different from Islam. To the outside, they make face as if they are Muslims, especially when they live within Muslims. For example, they fast on Ramadan, not because they believe that they should fast in Ramadan, but because they don't want to make the Muslims angry at them by eating in the faces. So they in the public sphere, they fast on Ramadan. At home, behind the closed doors, they eat during the Ramadan, during the day. Okay, they in public they don't drink wine. Again, in order not to aggravate the Muslims. While inside the home, they have no problem with this. Also, all kinds of this is called in Arabic taqiyya. Taqiyya means to make face as if you are like the majority, in order to maintain the connection between your head and shoulders. Otherwise, you are putting this connection in danger. So this is taqiyya, well known in Islam. Under the Ottoman Empire, which was in the Middle East between 1517 and 1917, exactly 400 years, ending with the First World War, they were autonomous. Autonomous means that the Ottoman Empire left them alone to live their own life, to deal with their own business, and to leave the others alone. Of course, they have no interest to mess with others, so they were left alone to live their own life, community life, as autonomous community recognized by the Ottoman Empire, and as long as they paid the dues or the taxes which they were supposed to pay, they were left alone. Then, in the First World War, the French and the British toppled the Ottoman Empire and took over all the areas to the south from Turkey today. But today, Turkey, the Anatolia Heights. And of course, Syria, Lebanon were under French rule, while Eretz Israel, Jordan, Iraq were under the British mandate for 25 years. The French wanted, at the beginning, they wanted to establish 5 states instead of Syria. 1 state for the Druze, 1 state for the Alawites, 1 state for the Kurds in the north, and 2 states for the Arabs, for the Muslims. But for a reason, I won't get to the reason, they decided that there is a nation, a Syrian nation, which should have 1 state, the Syrian state. Of course, they divided Syria and Lebanon, so the Christians can have their own state and not be ruled by Muslims as they were through history. And this is actually the raison d'etre of Lebanon, to be the safe haven for Christians. While Syria is the country of the Muslims, of the Christians in Syria, Druze and Alawites together, and Arabs and Kurds together. This is, however, the Druze did not want to give up on their autonomy. They lived for 400 years detached from anybody else. So why should they go to live or turn to live under the yoke of Islam? So they started the rebellion in 1925, August 1925, and the leader of the rebellion was a guy named Sultan al-Atrash. Today, in all the Druze villages and towns, you see big statues of this man leading with a sword in his hand, leading the rebellion against the French, who wanted to subjugate them to Muslims. He is revered as a hero, as the symbol of their entity as Druze. By the way, Druze have no problem to have statues of human beings, while in Islam it's totally forbidden, because Islam followed the Jewish ban on Lo ta'aseh lecha pesel v'chol temunah. Thou shalt not make for you a statue or a picture or an image, while Druze have no problem with this because they left Islam. So, but the French tried to convince them and they failed. So what the French did, they put a siege on the Jabal Druze, means the mountain of the Druze. And in August, when you don't have water and food, you are in a problem. And they almost killed them all by starvation. You know, no humanitarian aid, no United Nations, no nothing. I'm talking about the French Empire of 1925. Okay? This is how they behave. And the Druze had no other choice but to join the Syrian state. Now, the Druze, since the Druze are small and vulnerable community, they always attach themselves to the powerful side of any struggle in order to survive. And if the powerful side becomes weak, they will change their loyalty to the other one because the other one is more powerful. Okay? Because they cannot allow themselves, they cannot have the luxury of being identified with the losers. They must be attached to the winners. And actually, also when Israel was established in 1948, they were waiting to see who prevails, the Arabs who invaded Israel or the Jews who were fighting for their life in the War of Independence. And since they saw that the Jews are actually surviving and taking over and remain and survive, so they joined us wholeheartedly because now they are with us. And ever since then, the Druze in Israel are indivisible part of the army. They are recruited to the army just like Jews, by law, as of 1955. And the girls are not recruited to the army, but their girls serve in the police and in other services of the state because of tradition. Girls are not going to the army because of their tradition. So they go to the police. They serve in the police in Mishmar HaGvul, also, which is a semi-military unit. And this is what happens. The Druze in Israel live on the Carmel Mountain near Haifa, in two big villages, Osafia and Daliat al-Carmel, in the Galilee, Rama, Bejan, and some 8 villages. Some of them are with Muslims and or Christians. Because in Israel, it's a state of law. Nobody kills anybody because he converted from or left Islam. So they, like Shfar'am, has all the 3 communities, Muslims, Druze, and Christians, and others. And the third place of Druze in Israel is the Golan Heights. We have 4 villages on the Golan. One of them is on the Hermon Mountain, Majd al-Shams, Buk'ata, and Kenya, and Mas'ad. These 4, those who live in the Golan were living in Syria. Means Syria was on the Golan until 1967. And ever since 67, means almost 60 years, they live with us. So many of them asked and received Israeli citizenship. Many of them serve in the army. And today, the mayor of Ein Kenya, one of the Druze villages in the Golan, actually is a high officer in the army. Although originally he was a Syrian citizen, but he took Israeli citizenship, went to the army, and went up the ladder of being an officer. So this is what happens. But here we must mention the name of a hero of the Druze. His name was Salim al-Shufi. Salim al-Shufi was a teenager before the 6-Day War in the early or late 50s. And he saw from Majd al-Shams, from his village, he saw Israel every night, from the mountain. And he decided that he wants to go to Israel. And he crossed the border, walking on his feet, and lived in the Galil somewhere. And then somebody from Sayeret Matkal, the most important elite unit in Israel, heard that there's a boy, teenager, who came from Syria. So he got in touch with him, and he knew all the places, all the paths, all the ways from the Golan to Israel and back. So he joined Sayeret Matkal, And he was the leader of all the soldiers who were walking to Syria, to all kinds of places in Syria, Matkal. They all walked behind him. Benjamin Netanyahu, Benny Gantz, Amnon Lipkin Shachak, all those, Yoni Netanyahu, all those fighters of Sayeret Matkal were walking on his footsteps, really, literally, walking into Syria and back. His name was Salim Shufi. Many times, on the way back from the operation in Syria, he would tell them, sit here, wait here, don't move, don't breathe, be very quiet, I'm coming back. And he ran to his village, to Majd al-Shams, went into the house of his parents, gave them both a kiss during the night, hugged them, and ran away. And ran away to meet the Sayeret Matkal who was waiting for him, and he walked them out from Syria safely. He, after the 6-Day War, of course, he was already older, and he became, in the 80s, the mayor of Majd al-Shams, and when he passed away, he is buried in the Golan, and he has like an andarta, a place on his name in the village of Mas'ade. Every single day, every single year, in the day of his passing, Netanyahu and all those are coming to give tribute to this dear Druze man, Salim al-Shufi, who was leading them into Syria and back safely every time. So this is the Druze. They are loyal to Israel 100%. The ratio of volunteers to combat units within the Druze boys is higher than the ratio of boys who volunteer to combat units within the Jewish sector. To that degree, they are with us wholeheartedly. Why are they with us? Because we saved them from the Islamists. And if I have time, I'll give you another story about what they mean. I know a Druze officer who served in one of the units which I was serving in, and his motivation was in the sky. And he lives on the Carmel, in Dalet al-Carmel. And one day I asked him, where do you get this such 100% motivation? So I'll tell you the story. The 6-Day War, he was not born yet. But the 6-Day War is, you remember, Sarah, the war was after 3 weeks of waiting period. Nobody knew what they are waiting for, but they waited for 3 weeks on the tanks, on the vehicles, waiting for the war, and nobody knew. Later, they got to know what happened. In these 3 weeks, his father one day was in the yard of his house in the Carmel. He was plowing the ground, and he had at home a bush around the home, a fence, but not a concrete, but made of bush. In this fence, you cannot see through, but you hear everything. You hear everything behind it. And his father heard 2 Arabs speaking in the dialect of the Galil, of the Muslims, standing there near his house, and they are dividing the village. You will take this house, I will take that house, our brother will take this house, our sister, because they were already planning what to do with the Druze after they killed all the Druze, because those who spoke were Muslims. And they were standing there behind the fence. They didn't see him. They didn't see the father because he was behind the bush. But he heard everything, how they divide the houses. when the war will erupt and will kill all the Jews and all the Druze. He took his axe and he ran out. When they saw him with the axe, they ran to the car and they ran away. He succeeded to chop the tire of one of the wheels of the car, but they ran away anyway. And he told his sons, you go and you serve in the army, because otherwise those will share the house, will divide our houses to them. Means that's what he told me. I am protecting my house. I am protecting my home, my family in your army, in the Israeli army. So to that degree, they are loyal because they know what they are defending. So this is the fraternity which we in Israel have with the Druze community. The Druze community in Israel, in order to avoid genetic problems, they make sure that they get married with Druze, means boys, girls, from other villages, from other places. It means from other clans, in order to avoid genetic problems. Many of the Druze in Israel have wives from Syria, from the Druze community in Syria. Because, and both countries, Syria and Israel, allowed it through the years, because both countries understood the need, and they allowed boys from Israel to get married with girls from Syria, and boys from Syria to get married with boys from Israel, and to live either in Syria or in Israel, and it was acceptable by both Syria and Israel through the years. Now, Syria was taken by the Islamists, by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS. And this HTS is something between Al-Qaeda and ISIS. Giuliani himself, the leader of HTS, had a $10 million on his head, not because he parked his car in a no parking zone. Okay, the man was chopping heads in ISIS. He spent, I think, some 8 years in American prison in Iraq. Okay, he's a jihadist, and he took Syria over. Now, of course, the whole world views him. He's going now with a necktie. You know, these people hate the necktie because necktie is a symbol of the corrupt West. But he goes around with necktie. So today he can be a guest of the French President Macron. Okay, that's why, because he needs the European money. So his gangs are raiding and slaughtering Druze and Alawites, because both communities are non-Islamic. Druze left Islam, Alawites never were Muslims, although their religion includes all kinds of Islamic elements, yet they are not Muslims. And the Islamists, the jihadists, keep raiding their areas, killing them, butchering them, kidnapping their daughters, and you know what for. And this was how the Alawites and the Druze are living today. And now the question is, what should Israel do? After all, the Druze in Israel are our brothers, blood brothers, in every meaning of the word. And they are married to the Druze in Syria. So do we have a choice not to support our brothers in Syria? They are the brothers of our brothers. Means that Israel is not only morally, it is total commitment to the Druze in Syria, because they are our brothers. So from this consideration, we should help them. And of course, the Druze in Israel, who know exactly what happens in Syria, minute by WhatsApp, because they have the same groups, WhatsApp groups or Telegram groups with their brothers and sisters in Syria. So they know exactly what happens every single minute. So whenever a Toyota car comes with a machine gun of those jihadists to near the villages of the Druze, everybody knows it in Israel because it passes immediately. So they demand the government to protect their brothers, and for a very good reason, because otherwise those brothers will be abused by the Jolani gangs. But unfortunately, there are Israelis who don't think so. They keep saying, and they're right, that the Druze were actually through the years in Syria siding with Assad. And Assad, as you know, was a mass killer, both the father and especially the son. And they supported Assad. Why should we support them when those who were oppressed through the years, the Islamists, take revenge? They take revenge for a reason, because the Druze were the partners of the Alawites in oppressing the others. So I tell them they had no other choice but to be with the winner, because if they are with the loser, they will lose everything, including their life. So the fact that they sided with Assad was not necessarily because they are hating Muslims and really willing to butcher them as the Assad was doing. They most probably were doing it, were siding with the government, because they cannot allow themselves to be associated with the losers, because otherwise they will lose everything, including the connection between the heads and shoulders. So, therefore, in my humble view, Israel should protect them. Now, that's not. I'm not saying that the Israeli Air Force needs to have a presence 24/7 above the Druze areas, but what we can do is to send a credible threat to Julani. If you allow anybody to go to the Druze area and to abuse them, you have a problem with us. And we might treat you like we treated Hassan Nasrallah, because he was a jihadist and you are a jihadist. And you deserve it because what you did in ISIS. So you better keep an open eye on your people and leave the Druze alone. And don't mess with us, because we mean what we say and we say what we mean. That's what I mean by credible threat. This should be enough to convince him, especially it is said in Arabic. He doesn't, I don't know if he speaks other languages, but in Arabic he's good. So it should be said in Arabic. And this is what, in my humble view, Israel should spread its hegemony over the southern part of Syria in order to make sure that the Druze are being protected, safe, and sound. However, there is another community which share this problem with the Druze, and this is the Alawites. And they live in the coast, in the Syrian coast, to the north from Lebanon, on the coastal area, where the harbors of Latakia, Tartus, Banyas are. This area is a bit far away from Israel. The whole Lebanon is between us and that area. So technically, it is harder to protect the Alawites. The Alawites, of course, they were, through the years, they were not our friends. Assad was the Alawite, both father and son, and formerly Salah Jadid was also an Alawite. And in order to galvanize the Syrian society under Assad, they actually developed the Jew hatred and the Israel hatred to a degree of art. And I actually mentioned it or analyzed it in my book about Syria. Assad in search of legitimacy. This is the title of the book, Assad in Search of Legitimacy Message and Rhetoric in the Syrian press under Hafez al-Bashar. It was published 20 years ago in 2005 by Sussex Academic Press, which actually is some kind of derivative from my PhD dissertation. So the Alawites definitely deserve protection, because otherwise the Muslims will slaughter them one by one, or many by many. And Israel should say the same thing. Israel cannot fly 24/7 above their area. Yet Israel can send the same message to Julani: hey guy, make sure that your jihadists leave the Alawites alone, otherwise you have a problem with us. Okay, so this is what Israel should do. And this, especially when it comes to the Druze, actually touches a very, very important point in the culture of the Middle East. The culture of the Middle East, one of the most important pillars of the culture in this area is loyalty. Loyalty to your friends and allies. You are not allowed to betray them. If you betray your friends, if you betray your allies, you are not a human being. You don't deserve to live. This is the worst thing. The khiyana means the treason. Treason is something which is totally beyond the red lines of the allowed and forbidden. Totally. Israel is tested by the Middle East. Are you loyal to your brethren? At least the Druze, if not the Alawites as well, or not? And the whole attitude to the state of Israel will be a derivative of Israel attitude. The Saudis are looking at us, asking this question without sound, but I know the Egyptians, the Jordanians, everybody is looking at us, whether we are loyal or we betray them. And here I must mention, in the 2000, exactly 25 years ago, in May 2000, Israel ran away from southern Lebanon under Ehud Barak, the prime minister. He decided to withdraw the IDF from southern Lebanon, and he decided at the same time to leave the southern Lebanese army, SLA, to the mercy of Hezbollah. He betrayed them. For 3 days, they were crying on the fence, let us in, otherwise they will slaughter us. Until he understood the mistake, and he allowed them in. Ehud Barak had no clue, and still has no clue, about the culture of the Middle East. And amazing how this man became a prime minister here. He was the most failing prime minister ever we ever had, maybe except for Lapid, was supported by him. But Ehud Barak was a disastrous prime minister. That's why he was very short time until we kicked him away. And he betrayed, tragically, the southern Lebanon army, the SLA. And Israel got a very, very bad name, very, very bad reputation because of what he did. We are now, I hope, that we restore the honor of being loyal to our friends and allies and brothers, actually, with the Druze. And this is why we should support the Druze in every possible way. In my view, also the Alawites. We cannot allow genocide, and this will be a genocide, because so far thousands of Alawites were butchered by the Golani forces. But they have enough seichel not to film it and to upload it to the net, unlike ISIS. ISIS were proud of the fact that they were butchering people. The Jolani people are a bit brighter than ISIS, and they do not allow anyone to take pictures. The Alawites are taking pictures of what is happening, and they upload it to the net in order to show the whole world what these jihadists are doing to them. And this is how I know about this. I hope that the Israeli government and the American administration will do something about this, about the Alawites. By the way, Christians as well. It's not only Alawites. Christians who live with the Alawites are suffering similarly, just like the Alawites, because Christians also are not Muslims and should be punished for not embracing the right religion, of course, Islam. And this is a situation which Israel here. In addition to what we do in Gaza, in addition to the problem which we had with the Houthis in Yemen, in addition to whatever we have with Iran, now we have also to deal with the Druze in Syria. Multi-frontal war, but Israel is doing it. From the October 7th, when we were caught by surprise, so vulnerable, so weak, we succeeded to get rid of most of the power of Hezbollah, to cause the collapse of the Syrian regime, which was the backbone of the Iranians here, to convince the pro-Iranian militias in Iraq to give up on their weapons, to hit tremendously the Houthis in Yemen, yet there is work to do, and to get rid of the Iranian air defense systems to a degree that Iran today is exposed. Just compare October 7th and today's situation. To protect the Druze seems to be a very easy job compared to all the other jobs we are dealing with successfully all over this part of the Middle East. Sarah, thank you so much for having this session. And
Wonderful.
I see 150 people are listening.
Right.
And if there are questions, I'll be more than happy to try to answer.
Okay. I have a lot of questions. I totally agree with you about the Druze. We have cemeteries in Israel that are full of graves of soldiers that have risked their lives, given their lives, made the ultimate sacrifice for the state of Israel. But we had a period of our history of Sabra and Shatila when we tried to protect the Maronite Christians. I mean, and Israel is so extended on so many fronts. Are you afraid this might risk some sort of war with Syria, with the forces of Ahmad al
Uh,
Sharaa?
Look, as long as Syria is run by this group of jihadists, although I don't like them at all, yet they are less of a threat compared to normal states like Iran or other states in the region. They still have not yet built their army again after Israel destroyed the former Syrian army because they have other priorities. By the way, this is why Jolani, means Ahmad al Sharaa, the president of Syria, he actually spoke about joining the Abraham Accords. I think that this is some kind of deception because in his DNA, he is against Israel. Somebody who served not a week or two until he saw what they do, served really in Al Qaeda and ISIS, including sitting in the jail and having $10 million on his hand, is somebody who really believes in the jihad against anybody who is not Sunni Muslim. So, and as you know, part of the jihad is deception. There is a hadith which says, Al-Harb Khuda'a. In Arabic means that the war is deception, or the war includes deception. And we know it. Hamas took Gaza over in June 2006. No, 2007. Hamas took over, and for 16 and a half years until October 2023, they deceived us to think that all they want is an Islamic State in Gaza, to work in Israel, to have good life, good economy, good health, good education, and have normal life. And this is why we were caught in surprise on October 7, 2023, because for 16 and a half years, Hamas convinced us that all they want is to have good life. I'm afraid that Giuliani is the same, because he comes from the same school of the jihad, of the Muslim Brotherhood, which are all about jihad. Even it is a migration jihad or economic jihad, let alone a military jihad. There are all kinds of jihad. And here now the jihad is, first of all, to build Syria, to restore the army, or to rebuild the army, and to be able in 20 years, 30 years, to do to us what Hamas did to us on October 7, 2023, after they put us to sleep for 16 and a half years. So this is why I keep warning the Israelis, and not only the Israelis, about this. Don't fall in this trap again. Once was enough. One was too much.
Right. The world is very easily duped. But the Alawites had so many secret militia, so many secret services under Hafez al-Assad and Bashar al-Assad. Why do we feel, or why do you feel we have to try to protect the Alawites? I know they're under siege
Yes,
now,
it,
but they
it's a
they
great
were
question.
horrible.
Yeah. In Syria, the Alawites had the army. They were controlling the country. They were the country. They were the state. They had the army, they had the police, they had all the security organizations, they had the power. They did not collect weapons at home. They did not develop militias underground or above the ground. They did not develop alternative leadership to Assad. So when you don't have weapons, you don't have frameworks of militias, and when you don't have leadership, you are exposed, you are single people who are struggling, everyone by himself, without the weapons, without the organization, and without the leadership. And this is why their tragedy is the biggest, because they lost the state which they were controlling ever since 1966, where the Alawites took over the Ba'ath Party. So this is, while the Druze collected many weapons because they are Druze. Muslims collected weapons because they are Muslims. The Alawites did not collect weapons because they were the masters of the state.
So what about the Kurds? They were the true losers. They're spread through Iran,
Right.
Iraq, Syria, Lebanon.
The Kurds, as you know, is the biggest ethnic group globally which does not have a state. They are divided between 4 states: Syria in the west, Iraq in the center, Iran in the east, and Turkey in the north. They are divided, and they are a minority in each and every of these countries. Some 10 years ago, the Kurds in Syria declared independence, and they declared that their state is called Rojava. Rojava in Kurdish means the western country, because they are in the west of the 4 parts of the Kurdish land. And of course, the one who didn't like it was Erdogan, the Turkish. So they invaded Syria in order to make sure that the Kurdish state, Rojava, in Syria, does not occupy a corridor to the Mediterranean Sea. Because as long as they don't have this corridor, they are trapped in the continent, with Turkey in the north, Syria in the southwest, and Iraq in the southeast. If all three countries, Iraq, Syria, and Turkey, decide together not to allow any airplane to cross above their skies on the way to Rojava, the Kurdish state or the Kurdish district, so they are choked. They cannot run a state without being able to export and import. Even drugs you cannot, or medications you cannot bring in. So they are there, the Turkish, in order to make sure that the Kurds do not have a state. I think that if Israel will support the Kurds in any kind of support, Israel opens a direct war with Turkey. And this is the last thing which Israel needs, especially now when we have all kinds of problems in many. However, I must mention here a very important element. The American administration, headed by President Trump, this administration, I think, made the change. Because today, Israel has much more ability to act against its enemies. The Biden administration put almost handcuffs on our hands, answering all kinds of challenges in Gaza, in Lebanon, in Iran, and maybe the Houthis as well. We were not free. The ammunition was given to us selectively, and Israel had to find all kinds of solutions. Now, with the Trump administration, we feel much safer. We feel much more able to do things which were not allowed to carry out in the Biden administration. However, when we hear during the last couple of days the advancement of the negotiations with Iran, we are afraid that this agreement will be on the expense, not only our expense, also the Saudi expense and the Emirati expense, because as long as Iran is there with nuclear any capability, is threatening all these countries. Not only this, we heard also, I think today or yesterday, that there is some kind of an agreement between the Houthis in Yemen and the Americans to stop the raids of the Americans on the Houthis, and the Houthis will stop targeting ships, American ships. What about Israel and the missiles which are launched to us every day on a daily basis, or drones? I'm not sure that the American administration has this also a part of the agreement or the understanding with the Houthis. So we are afraid that America will come to some agreement with the Houthis, which will allow them to continue to target us. So, it actually reminds me something which Henry Kissinger, the guru of the American policies, international policies, once said that America's enemies should fear America. America's friends should fear America even more.
It's Machiavellian. Right,
I think,
right.
I think that the exact wording was that for America's enemies, America is dangerous, while for its enemies, it's detrimental, could be.
Right.
Mm.
So I have a lot of questions. One thing is, first of all, Israel is directly involved in the attacks from the Houthis. I think Prime Minister Netanyahu was very much taken by surprise by this announcement when President Trump was meeting with the new Prime Minister of Canada. And all of a sudden, he said the Houthis have decided to surrender. Will not bomb the Houthis any longer. Um, and this is a very binary relationship. When it's a multilateral relationship, the Houthis are really attacking not just American ships in the Red Sea. And of course, the American shipping lanes and international shipping lanes are going around the Horn of Africa now. It's not such a familiar occurrence, but it very, very much involves the state of Israel. And Israel has been America's number one ally. Don't you agree that the Prime Minister of Israel should at least be forewarned before announcements such as these are just pronounced from the Oval Office?
Well, when I listen to Trump, I tend to think that sometimes when he's standing on the podium and speaking in public events, only then he thinks about an idea and he talks about this. Usually his ideas are very good in all kinds of areas. But I'm not sure that he is doing his homework with his advisors beforehand. Of course, he has the in many cases he does. Of course, his decisions and plans are well tailored, formulated. Definitely in many things. But sometimes I tend to believe that things he thinks about them, usually very good thoughts, and he airs them in a press conference, maybe before he exhausted all the discussions about these things. Okay, but look, one thing I'm more than sure, his heart is in the right place. Sarah, unlike other politicians in the United States of America, which we knew them for ages, Trump, his heart is in the right place. He's with us. Of course, he has make America great again. America great again, not other countries. And I don't blame him. He is the president of the United States of America. He's not the president of Israel yet. Okay? So if he cares for the interests of America, it's not because this is his mission. This is his assignment. What does he do in the White House if not to make sure that America is great again and to serve the American interests as he views these interests? Okay, so I never blame him for promoting the American interests. On the contrary, stronger America is better for Israel, better for the world,
Right,
even
of
if it comes
course.
on the expense of Israel. Sarah, this is something which we all should bear in mind. Strong America, as it is under Trump, is the first interest of Israel, Western Europe, Australia, all the Western countries, even if it comes on the expense of the tariffs.
Right. I agree with you. Having had said that, it's a very global universe. Iran is has um, of, I'm over 300 kilograms of highly enriched uranium at the 60% level. They're working in intercontinental ballistic missiles. They always say death to Israel, death to America. We're next.
Right.
I think as President Trump and Steve Witkoff and others are going to go to Amman this weekend to work out the negotiations, I think that they should be looking out for America's interests as well as Israel's interests. We are the canary in the coal mine. And
Well, Sarah, let me recommend to your viewers to download an application named Newsrael. This is how you spell it.
okay, Israel, yeah.
Newsrael. This is an application which I'm the vice president of the company which produces it. And there is a section named the Kedar Daily. Almost every day, I upload a video. And one of the videos there are, I think today, 12 already. It started like last month. And um, uh, one of the clips is under the title, The 10 Commandments of Negotiations with Iran. How any Westerner should sit with the Iranians, what should he know about the Iranians, about the way of negotiations and how he should behave. I highly recommend to each and every one of your viewers to download this application to his uh, um, cell phone, both Android, Newsrael.
Right. Okay, wonderful.
Newsrael,
So, yeah,
both on Android and iPhone.
that is wonderful. So, we are just about out of time. I will be announcing very shortly our next webinar. It has been an amazing pleasure, to have you, Mati. Um, I still have many, many questions. And in particular, I would like to come back. I would like to have you back, and we have to discuss the relationship of many entities in our government with Qatar.
Well, people can write to me by email. The email is very easy, Kedar, Kedar, at newsrael.com.
Okay, wonderful. So
Kedar,
at
Kedar at
news,
newsrael.com.
yes. So I really, I encourage everybody to write to Mati and to buy his many books. How many books have you published by now?
I write articles. I wrote one book, and then I noticed that nobody read books.
Right.
Nobody has the geduld, the
Right.
patience to read books, and it's a lot of work, especially academic books. So I would rather publish articles, and I have many of them on the net, and of course clips, which are much more influential than books. And I know,
So
Sarah, that you wrote books. It's okay.
yeah, I wrote
I,
books and
I
I also write articles almost every week. And
right.
I really would love to encourage everybody. We need your support. As we're talking, a part of our staff is on Capitol Hill right now, trying to educate our policymakers, and they depend on
including
us.
myself, including
Right.
myself. Sarah, you are bringing me to Capitol Hill like every year since I
Right.
started my speaking tours like 15 years ago. And so many staffers learned, and Congress members and senators also once in a while come to here. And good, so thank you so
It's
much for
been,
what you
yeah,
do. And thank you so much for what you are.
thank you so much, Mati. It's always a pleasure. And if you can, please support us. We depend on all of you for your support at ametonline.org. Thank you so very much. Take care, Mati. Bye-bye.